Keri-Lynne Shaw, welcome to the Entrepreneur Next Door. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, are you in New York City?
I am not in New York City. I am in northern New Jersey.
It's okay, close enough.
Close.
We're practically neighbors. Um,
Yeah.
so, tell me your story, the brief version of about a minute, and I'll tell you the one I want you to share first. There was a post where you listed sort of like your journey in like one liners, and it started with I'm a Canadian. And I went to school, and I'm going from memory now. I went to school and I dropped out of school. That's the one, right? And I went to sell cars, I think, something like that. So go for it. Take me up until you decide to be an entrepreneur, but we'll dig into everything right after that.
Okay. Wow. All right. So you got the first part. I sold cars to pay for college, and I ended up, yes, dropping out because it was not what I wanted to study. I was studying special ed, and while it was incredibly wonderful, it was not where my heart was. So I ended up moving from Canada to the US, followed a boy, and while that didn't work out, I never moved back to Canada. And in the meantime, he was a car dealer. And so there was this thirst for this industry. I became a car nerd. I still am to this day. I ride a Harley, and I just loved the business, and I realized I wanted to work in corporate. So I got an incredible opportunity. I met this guy at an auto show, and he would come by every day and see me and talk to me. And he said, "So, what do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "I want to work in corporate for automotive in the automotive industry." And he said, "All right, well, I work in the automotive industry. Why don't you send me your resume?" And I was like, "I don't even have my resume, but yeah, I'll send you my resume." So I ran home, got my resume together, sent it off, and he said, "Wow, thank you so much." He said, "But I see you don't have your degree, so unfortunately we can't hire you." And I was like, "Damn, what? Why did I quit school?" So I ended up signing up. I transferred all of my credits down to the US. 2 weeks later, I reached back out to him and I said, "Listen, I recognize that I don't have my degree. Here's my story. I have signed up. I have over 200 credits that I've transferred, and I will be getting my degree in a short period of time. And I think it's something really exciting for General Motors to hire me and mold me while I'm finishing my degree. What do you think?" And they flew me to New York, had an interview. Before I got on the plane, they offered me the job. So I was able to pry the door open, which was so awesome. They ended up putting me through a high potential program. I ended up then getting my MBA and having a really great run with them. Left, went to BMW for 12 years, and then subsequently did a bunch of different industries: fashion, beauty, and home. And then I kept coming in second for chief people officer roles, and I couldn't figure out why. And the universe was telling me that I should tap into the coaching certification that I got 10 years before and open my own firm. And I did just that on Valentine's Day 2024. How
Amazing.
was that? It was more than a minute.
No, no, it's fine. Counting. This is an hour podcast. There was something about you went to Germany,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I forgot that.
So that was super impressive to me, and I'll tell you why later. But you did a stint in Germany where you went there, didn't speak the language, right?
Yeah.
Your boss spoke to you only in German,
Yeah.
so that's pretty funky. But the international piece is gonna come in a little later. But I wanted to just throw it in there because you did the brave thing and escaped to Germany, which is
I don't know, Zev, if it was brave or stupid. I will say I am pretty fearless. When it came to job opportunities, I said yes to every single one. I was so hungry to always learn and grow. So it wasn't even a question, but I underestimated what that would do, A, for me personally. I came home with a herniated disc, migraines, unbelievable stress that I put on myself, and also the culture and the language and my boss at that time put on me. And so It was an incredible learning lesson on how to navigate really challenging environments. And I guess what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I came home with a souvenir, my husband. And so there was some, beautiful things that came out of my experience in Germany. And yeah, I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
So it was a souvenir you had to declare in customs when you pulled him in, right? You have anything to
I
declare?
did.
Yeah,
Yeah, a long interview process.
I got this guy with me, and so yeah, it's because I've traveled internationally for business a lot, and actually opened a sales office in Germany. Germany is a tough place to move to without speaking the language, and even culturally, they're really amazing people, but they are tough. They're
Yeah.
they're very hard to break into. It takes a while, so I can somewhat sympathize, although I didn't make that move. Okay, so like I said to all my guests, I've got a bunch of stuff listed from a couple of hours of studying you. We'll go all over the place. It will make sense at the end, hopefully. There is a guy called Cardinal de Retz, and he came up with a term or quote attributed to him. There is nothing in this world that does not have a decisive moment. And so my question for Keri is, what was a decisive moment that got you to choose entrepreneurship instead of continuing a corporate career?
Wow. Okay, so your audience knows we don't prepare for this. This is
No.
a really beautiful question.
I
Um,
mean, I don't
some,
share. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just so people
yeah.
understand, people always say to me, "What kind of questions should I prepare for?" I said, "I'm not sharing my questions. We're going to have a conversation. I have a list of things that I studied you, and I'm going to ask questions of you. But what we talk about emanates from this, right? So you didn't know this is coming, and there's more of those. So go ahead."
I love that. And it was so beautiful. Decisive moment to become an entrepreneur. I would say over my career, I felt like I had a very entrepreneurial spirit. So there was always something in, I would jump in on any project, uncovering the root cause. Like I loved lifting up the hood and when all the mice would run out and put all the pieces together and solving complex problems. So I always had the great fortune of working for leaders that let me run. And so it was always a little bit part of who I was, but I didn't realize 10 years before when I had gotten my coaching certification, I did it because I was a head of HR. I didn't do it because I wanted to coach full time. And that wasn't my goal. But what I realized was that there is a really important topic and that is self-advocation. And I feel like from my experience and even looking at my own experience, but also as a HR leader, there is so many people that are not in the driver's seat of their career, maybe also their life. And there is a really big missing hole statistically and just having lived it where people don't self advocate and they don't negotiate and they don't either realize that they can or they don't know how to. There's fear involved. And I really wanted to change the game. And I thought, that's not your traditional coaching. That is actually making a huge impact on the world if I can do it right. And so I decided to build a digital program. And funnily, I didn't want to coach full time. That was not my driver when I decided, when I woke up. I really did wake up one day and think, I have a name for this company. And I think this could really be something. And so I started writing. I started writing modules to be able to help people. And the decisive moment came from a friend who came over for dinner. And I told him, I said, listen, I've got this idea. What do you think? I think I want to make it into a program. And he said, you have to do this. Kale, you have to do this. I was like, I do? You have to do this. And then subsequently gave me homework that said, what are the A to Z's of the salary bump, which was the name of my company. And I already had the name. And I was like, the A to Z's of the salary bump. Interesting question. I woke up at 3 a.m. that next day. I could not sleep. And I got up, I got my laptop out, and I started writing the A to Z's of the salary bump. And it blew up from that morning at 3 a.m. And I decided I'm going for it. So it was a lot of me, but it was also, I guess, that little bit of validation that really helped me from my dear friend JP, who said, Kale, this is something, you have to do it.
So JP is a good friend because usually when we come up with ideas to the best intentions, people always find fault with it, but it might not work because, and then he is he in HR also? Or he's just a friend.
No, ironically, he is a producer and he produced my entire digital program
Hmm.
and directed it and produced it and helped me tremendously. And he also did it at zero cost, which was mind blowing. So I did give him a portion of all of my sales from my digital program. He gets as part of that. And when it gets to the stage of being something really huge, then we'll talk what we do next.
Well, listen, I don't know JP, but if he's listening, I love you, man. Come to me and do stuff for free also. No, it's this is real friendship. So your entrepreneurship, so the company you started, the salary bump, I'll ask you the question I ask everybody that I work with or I talk to. What, I mean, you hinted at, but maybe we can just kind of define it as a headline or a tagline, right? What problem is Keri-Lynne Shaw solving with her company?
Well, first of all, I'm so passionate about closing the gender pay gap and doing my part to help women specifically to advocate for themselves. Um, I spent probably the first 2 decades of my career not asking for what I was worth, not knowing what I was worth, not knowing I could ask, being afraid they might think that I was more interested in the money than I was the opportunity and the growth. And it wasn't until I left BMW, in fact, that I realized there's a whole world out there. And BMW was very structured. The two big companies I worked with, 125,000 employees, GM and BMW, they took care of me. And I thought that was good enough, right? Do good work and the money will come. But when I left, I realized that there is this whole world out there and that money doesn't have to be my number one driver for me to get all the things that I desire and have financial goals reached. And I recognize that this is not just me, that there are millions of people around the world that are not advocating for themselves, and the statistics are there to prove it. And I just thought, wow, if I could help close that gap and help people find the confidence to actually go after what they really are passionate about and what they value and get the money to go with it. There's a level of confidence and wow, like what a feeling that I was able to advocate for myself. And now what else in the world can I advocate for? Promotion, projects, a million different things in their career. But ultimately it's about helping people get in the driver's seat because no one is going to care about you more than you. No one is going to care about your career more than you. And if you don't get in the driver's seat and you don't take the wheel, someone else will. And it will, if you're not careful, cause a tremendous amount of frustration and anxiety and stress in your life that you can control the controllables. And the only thing you can control is getting in the driver's seat. So teaching people that is something that I'm just so happy that I have the gift to be able to do that with them and for them.
So coming from an auto industry, putting people in the driver's seat makes a lot of sense, right? You were at HR at BMW and GM, right? Was that your?
I actually spent 2/3 of my career in sales and marketing. I fell into HR by accident because I said yes to every opportunity, didn't know how to spell it. It was not in my trajectory. And in fact, I had never ever had to deal with HR. for most of my career, not even in the recruiting process because they found me a different way. So I didn't have to deal with HR once a year for benefits. That was it. Now, that tells me that it may or may not have been the most progressive HR or most modern HR, which is what I created when I came in, and really took a people first approach and a talent first approach, and helping leaders understand that if you focus on the talent, the business results are a natural result of that. So, as an HR leader, I was in every business meeting because I'm a business junkie. Anyway, I could not help myself but to be involved in the business. And the closer I was to the business as an HR leader, the more impact that we could all make. So, from an org design standpoint, constantly looking at our talent, looking at how do we deploy talent in different ways. And so it just bled so beautifully together. But no, it was not even something I knew existed before I took my first job.
So looking back at your pre-HR career within those two companies, do you feel that you didn't advocate for yourself, or were you just lucky that you didn't have to?
I advocated for myself significantly when it came to my career projects, how I showed up, how I treated others, what I delivered, following up on my commitments. So I delivered great work, and that was what I could control. So from an advocation standpoint, like someone would say, "Hey, we need someone like any ideas on this?" We're like, "Hey, I'm in. Put me in, coach." I would jump in on every topic because I was just so intrigued to learn. Um, so I advocated for myself that way, and I put myself in the driver's seat of my career, and I took the wheel. The money part was the part that I did not realize. So frankly, and most people don't, this isn't just me, this is the reason why I started the company. Most people don't recognize that you can negotiate, that you can advocate for yourself. And if they do, they don't know how, right? So they get blocked by not knowing how, or they're afraid the job might get pulled, or they're afraid they'll come across greedy, or whatever their association is to money. So those three reasons are the reasons why people don't negotiate, and the reasons why I didn't. I did try once to negotiate. I got turned down, and I said, "Well, listen, when I show you the money, then at the end of the year, hopefully you can make that up then in my bonus or something else." And my boss did. Again, there's so many guardrails in big companies. And then when I was able to leave that organization and go finally to something really fresh and new, I was able to double my package. And I did that then twice in my career. And that was the most mind blowing, like, oh my gosh, I have been leaving. That was the realization. I have left so much on the table. And that's not to say that there weren't other benefits. So keep in mind, in big companies, we had pensions, like we had other things that were a wonderful value add. I haven't had a card payment in years. So like there's wonderful things about being in these companies, but adding all of that up, I know what I left on the table.
It's interesting. My universe of listeners are entrepreneurs, small business owners, and I want to touch on the dynamics, because it's very different when you work for a GM and when you work for a family-owned business where the father, the son, the wife, and the cousin are there. And I want to touch on it because it's really important that we talk about it and then we learn from you. The message that you're sending to everyone, I'll fast forward to the end of this podcast. The message is, don't sell yourself too short. You should advocate for yourself. You should ask for a raise if you deserve it. You should ask for more. But there's a way to do it that's productive and doesn't come across as being money hungry, right? So I'll get that in a second, but I was thinking about, there's one company that I was associated with for a while. I'm going to leave them nameless, six years, fairly large organization. And literally every salary increase had to go all the way up to the president for personal sign-off. And this is a place that has multiple worldwide locations, it's fairly significant. There was such a tight rein on salaries because HR is line item on your P&L. HR is the most expensive thing any company spends on. So I haven't had a raise in 2 years. I'm not about me, but other people. I haven't had a raise. Can I have a raise? No, it's never going to get approved, right? That's pretty. So, and I've seen what it does. I saw what it does to employees who came from a salary freeze to a meager, meaningless 1% raise just to say we did something for you, which for most people gets eaten up the next time they fill up their car or they take the subway or whatever, to then getting nothing, right? So in big companies that are so tightly structured, flexible, it's a problem. And then we switch to my universe of small business. Now that's a completely different dynamics because it's a small company, and a small company could be 10 employees, it could be 50. But every dollar counts, and the owners look at the dollars. And when they give you a job, when they hire you, maybe they'll negotiate paying you less than what they set to pay you. And then it becomes, you should be happy you have a job, so just be quiet, right? The stakes are much higher in a smaller company than in a big company, I think, and you can tell me that I'm wrong. Um, I mean, I came from a small business where one company I stayed with and grew for 15 years. There were times years ago in the middle 90s, people were getting a 10 cents an hour raise. And sometimes the supervisor or department had to fight our boss. So he would get a chunk of money and he'd say, okay, you take that and spread it among 10 people. And you can give whoever you want this, right? It's insane, but it's part of reality, right? Someone will tell us, well, your neck's not on the line. I'm responsible for financial performance of the company. HR is expensive. They have a good job. They should just continue a good job. And if the company does well, they will do well. In small companies, it doesn't happen that often. It's just like the carrot at the end of the Christmas season. I'll give you a bonus. So I'm sorry, but I'm talking too much. But I'm trying to compare the problem you solve on a corporate side and maybe small business. If I ask for a raise and they don't give it to me, are they going to be scared that I'm going to start looking for another job?
Oh, so much to unpack what you just described. I will say, maybe, if maybe that's what they will think. But there is, what I want to touch on is a little bit around leadership. So no matter what, whether we're a small company, whether we're entrepreneurs, whether we are working in a large organization, a mid-sized company, leadership is one of the most critical factors. And as a leader, one of the most important things for you to inspire and drive performance is understand what drives your people. So I mentioned earlier that money is not my driver. Growth, learning, impact are my drivers. Again, that's not to say that I don't want the money to go with it, but those were really critical drivers. And if I go back to early in my career, one of the things that really stood out at General Motors, as an example, was company car that saves me
Mm-hmm.
car payment, insurance, gas, right? Then they had a tuition reimbursement program and they paid for my MBA. And actually, they ended up paying for the rest of my undergrad as well. And because growth and learning were really important to me, that was important to me at that time. Then fast forward in another organization where fertility was important to me because I was getting ready to start having a family. And the organization had full fertility benefits as part of the healthcare. That could equal $200,000 to $300,000. I mean, people who have gone through fertility know how expensive that can be. So that was actually a driver at that time in my life. And then as I grew and started to grow in confidence, it was actually okay that I worked for an organization that had a little bit less in salary, but more in equity and more in bonus because I knew I was a performer. So I was okay to bet on me. And I wanted a piece of the action. I wanted a piece of the organization. So there's different times in your life that certain things will show up or matter or not matter as much, if that makes sense. And I will say one thing. You mentioned about 10 cents an hour, or you mentioned about leaders have a certain bucket that they can pull from. There are so many other elements beyond salary. The list is really long, and most people don't realize it. They don't put all the other things on the table that, again, go into what you value. So if you were my boss and you said to me, Kale, I'm afraid I can only give you a 2% raise this year. I know inflation is at 6, but this is all I got. Okay. Well, talk to me about what else really matters to you, Kale. What are some of the other drivers that are really important to you? Well, then I'm going to share with you that my growth and development is important. And I've always wanted to become an executive coach. I'd love to take a coaching certification. Would the company be open to sponsor that? Or you've identified me as high potential throughout my years working here, and I would really love to hire a coach to help me get even better. Would that be something that you would invest in? Or my MBA, or la la la. Um, or, you know, I'd really like to just get your advice, Ev, on how can I continue to grow inside this organization, both professionally and financially? What is your advice? And put it back on your boss to partner with you on this. It's a very different conversation than saying, Zev, 2%, I'm going to, not enough, or I want more money, or I just had a kid and therefore, money's tight, or I just bought a house. Like, Zev doesn't care about that. What Zev cares about is that I'm going to make a greater impact inside the organization and do really great work, because that's going to make Zev look good. And that also elevates his leadership. Like, that's what Zev cares about. So show him how you can help him get what he needs, and Zev will then eventually show me the money. I promise. Zev will show me the money. And if he doesn't, because it's not within his control, because whatever subsequent reasons, then I can choose to stay and spiral, be miserable, or stay consciously, or leave and find another role that's going to be inspiring and is going to match the needs that I have.
So, and this was brilliant, because I think that's the big miss for people who are thinking about their tenure and their path in any position, right? It's it's not just about the money. You can get creative, but the assumption, the basis for you stepping on and advocating for yourself, is you also have to be honest with yourself that you are a high performer, that you've proven to the organization that you're not just a punch in, punch out person, that you're active, like you said, grab, 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 do, that you're visible, you're not afraid to take risks, that you are a company person, a team player, that if somebody mentions your name in a meeting, people should be able to react. KL, we love her. She's amazing, right? If that's the hard work you put into your career, then you have the right to ask for something, right? But a lot of people made the mistake. And this is a true story, where I was doing an annual review, and then we handed our raises, and then one of the customer service reps came into my office, said, "Can I speak to you?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, I mean, this is crazy, right? She said, "Do you like me?" And I said, "I don't know what that means." And she said, "Well, do you like me as an employee?" And I said, "Yeah, you're very nice." She said, "Okay, do I come to work on time?" "Yes, you do." "Do I take my lunch hour?" "Yes, you do." "Do I take more than my lunch hour?" "No, you don't." It's very nice. So why did I only get a 2% raise? And I looked at her and I said, "You just described your job description and what's required from you, expected from you as an employee. Come to work on time, take your lunch hour, go home on time, don't abuse the system. You're doing what you set to do. So why can I get a raise?" I said, "Because Have you done anything exceptional? Have you come up to me with ideas? Did you come up with ways to fix things that we're doing wrong? Innovate, anything, right? That's the misconception. People think that because I come to work and I leave and I take my lunch hour, then I deserve a bonus or deserve a raise. No, you don't. You have a job now. Okay, that's the old job. So the basis for what you're saying, yes, advocate for yourself, right? But you have to prove that you're worthy of whatever. If you're gonna step up on the mat,
Yeah.
you better have the skills and the backing to say I need it. So your primary audience are women, right?
Actually, 75%. I work with men as well, but most women, most of the people who
Yeah.
are intrigued are women. Yeah. And a lot of high potentials, a lot of women who are also excited to invest in themselves and their growth, um, and know that they're going to do the hard work. So obviously, I'm a coach, I'm partnering with them, and I'm in the passenger seat, helping them get in the driver's seat. But the work comes down to what they are going to execute. So it's people who are hungry and who are resilient and have grit. Those are the kinds of people that seem to be very excited to work
So
with me.
so I'm guessing since coaching is your business, so like what I do is you're kind of picky who you're gonna work with, right? If somebody comes across as I'm gonna say someone that looks and sounds and acts like you're gonna get excited because you know that they deserve more and they can do more. And they'll do the work. But if somebody comes in, rants and raves and complains and all they do is whine and said, okay, well, that type of personality isn't going to happen. That's not somebody I can help with.
It's not somebody who's willing to help themselves. So
Yeah.
no matter what we do together, they will never, and it won't be a match. It's not a vibe. It's sort of like the younger version, like my ideal client was the younger version of me
Yeah.
who just had like had some of the sauce, but just had no idea how to put all the ingredients together and found my way, but clunky as heck. If I had someone sitting in the passenger seat with me, helping me navigate, design my roadmap, execute. I do a lot of career transition work as well. So people who are ready to get out of a role, proactively ask for packages, then runway to get them their new role. So double negotiation, or people who've just been let go, who want me to be in the passenger seat, or just people who are like, I want more from my career, my life. And I want someone sitting next to me or onboarding me in my new role, in my new company. What does that first 90 days look like? Having a passenger, it's one of the best gifts that you can ever give yourself. I was very fortunate to have had a couple in my career, and like my trajectory of growth was massive, compared to just going along and testing and failing and learning. It's just such a game changer.
Hmm. So I want to throw a lizard brain type of objection to you and see how you respond to it, right? In terms of,
Okay.
I'm a coach, this is what I can do for you. I want to say, KL, I'm so excited, but what happens if I spend all this money on coaching and then I go ask for that raise and then nothing happens? Then I kind of wasted all this money. It's probably the lowest, stupidest excuse, but whether it's vocalized or not, it's always back there. Whether it's they hire me as a coach, right? Some of the owners say to me, "Well, what if I hire you and things don't happen, right? The company doesn't grow. We lower we increase our whatever." And my answer to them is, "I'm sorry. I think I know what I'm doing, but I'm not a magician, right? And a lot of what the outcome of our collaboration is going to be dependent on you, not on me." Okay, so that's my answer to those people. So how do you tell someone you define them as somebody who is the younger version of you, but they're scared because they have to invest in themselves by hiring a coach. Company is not
Yeah.
providing them. But what if nothing happens? What do you tell them?
Similar to you. But what happens is when people are hiring me, they're hiring me for more than just the salary bump. So it's ironic that I lead with the salary bump, and that's one of the products. It's actually so transformational on every aspect of their life, because what we're uncovering are things and blocks that are blocking them from other things as well, not just asking for a raise. So I'm not doing the negotiation on their behalf.
Mm.
I'm loading their lips to be able to go in. We're getting all the roadblocks out of the way, all the limiting beliefs out of the way. We're having a different association to money. We're talking through what the market is paying. So like there's a lot of homework involved, but the rest is up to them. So there is no guarantee in anything in life. And if they're willing to put in the work, I'm all in to be the best partner that they can possibly have. And let's see how it goes. Like I actually was going to launch with no bump, no fee. And a lot of people, including my lawyer, told me that that was a bad idea. But I actually really also, there's a part of me, Zev, that says, listen, in the end, this partnership doesn't work out. Like, I want you to be happy. I want you to get something out of this. I would always be, I've never had to, but I would always be happy to have that conversation. I just think that you, the fear is, yes, the money, because it's an investment. But I think the greater fear is the unknown and the unknown of what I may uncover. So I am a coach, right? You're a coach. I just hired myself 4 coaches. I went all in on me this year, heavy. A business coach, a trauma coach, a personal coach, and a hormone coach to help me navigate menopause. All in on me. And I invested a massive amount of money on me. And that was probably the first time in my life where I've invested that much, but I was ready to do the work. So if you're not ready to do the work, you're not going to invest in yourself. So it really is,
Mm.
it's this match. And there's also this element of I'm not tied to the outcome of any conversation I have with any of my potential clients. If there's a match and it jives and it makes sense, and if not right now, maybe in the future, um, I will always be there to support and guide, but it doesn't have to be in that exact moment. So I'm very open to the flow of whatever is coming to me, and that took a lot of work, by the way, to be okay with
Mhm.
that because you get tied to the outcome. You want to work with this person. It's an amazing opportunity. If it doesn't work out, why not? What about me? So I'm in a really good place from that perspective.
So, I mean, when you said no bump, no fee, the hairs in the back of my neck just jumped right out because to me it's like, no, 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 no. You're gonna have a lot of clients and you're gonna die poor. Absolutely not. It's this that doesn't work that way. So I'm glad they talked you out of it. So when I was studying you, I kind of broke what you do into 2 parts. Maybe we can touch on it in terms of negotiating. So negotiating for a new job in terms of a salary versus negotiating for a raise and a bump that we kind of covered, right? So let's talk about the new job. So I mean, I'm in New York, you're in Jersey. I don't know what the rules are in Jersey. I don't know what the rules are in the rest of the country, but New York, I think a couple years ago, introduced a law, which is great, but it's New York, so everybody breaks it. The law said when you post the job, you have to indicate what the job is offering or the salary range. And the second thing, and you tell me if I'm getting it wrong. And the second thing is you're not allowed as an employer ask your candidate anything about what their salary is or anything like that. So great idea. Good luck with execution. So now you see job postings, even by big companies, salary range $1 to $1 million. Okay, they complied. They met the law. There's a range. Off you go. Not asking a candidate, so what's your salary expectations or how much you get paid? That's a little more tricky. So tell me how. I mean, this is New York, right? If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere with all the twists and turns and how we break the system. But maybe address it in New York, but in a global, more of a national thing. New job. How do we negotiate?
Yeah. So, first of all, to your point, I think there's more than 20 states now that have this law in place. Most of the numbers that are listed are bogus. They're what they budgeted for the role. And having sat in the HR seat, it's one of the things that I saw firsthand. We have this budget for the role. That's what we're going to post. And if you don't dig in and actually do the benchmarking internally, do the benchmarking on the market, you're going to put whatever the manager says to put. So these recruiters come in, okay, it's 60,000 to 80,000. Okay, great. Having not done your homework, and there's a lot of danger in that. So I actually posted about this on LinkedIn a while back, that a woman did a TikTok where her company posted her friend's job, who had the exact same job as her, 65,000 more than what she was making, something ridiculous. And so she applied for it in tongue in cheek, and then promptly quit, and then doubled her salary somewhere else. So companies are not thinking. They are moving fast. I got to get this role filled. And recruiters maybe are not asking the right questions, whatever the reason. It's nonsense. And so you can't even trust these ranges, because when a recruiter calls you or you're in your first interview, one of the first questions they will ask you is, what are your expectations? The law says you can't ask what you make. It doesn't say that you can't ask what you're expecting. And my advice to all of my clients is, you never answer that question first. You go back and say, listen, all I see is the job description. What I would love is to understand a little bit more about this role. Why don't we start with you sharing the actual budget for the role? I see what you have posted as a range, which based on my homework is a little bit low. So what is the budget for the role? And try to put it back on them to answer. And my second most important piece of advice is, you never ever talk in numbers. You talk in ranges, always. And before you answer any of those questions, you do your research on the market. There's a million different websites that you can look at. ChatGPT even has one called Salary Navigator, and they'll pull from at least 3 different websites: PayScale, Glassdoor, etc. You say what the title is, as much information. You can even drop in, copy paste the job description or the posting, and they'll tell you what the market range is in your city and state. And this gives you at least a baseline to say, oof, that's very low compared to where I am, or ooh, that's much higher than where I am. And it gives you an indicator, and then you can start to figure out, where do I slot myself in this range so that with a number that I would be really happy with. But then you only go in when you're talking with these companies and talk ranges. It's something actually that I'm working on building out. I'm trying to figure out how to scale it, where I can go into companies and actually help them with pay transparency, because I think there's a real opportunity around employee engagement and reducing your turnover rates if transparency were part of a value that you lived inside your company, that you can have pay transparency so people understand what their career looks like inside the organization, what the ranges are, how do you come up with your ranges, where do I fall in the range, why, how can I go and higher on the range, what does all that look like, and having more structure around it, that will actually impact your organization in a very positive way. But that's fast forward, maybe next year. I'll be ready to launch that. But you advocating for yourself based on having done your homework, and if the range you uncover is different than what is, what they say it is, have that conversation. Say, well, based on where I am, based on my experience, and based on my market research, I saw a range more like 75 to 125, and then stop talking.
Yeah, and as you pointed out before, salary range is salary range, but throw it back at whoever's interviewing and say, what else, what other incentives do you have for employees? Because they might have a package of benefits that is worth more than you pushing to get another $5,000 or whatever it is, of things that are important to you, like you mentioned, right?
That's well said, and a perfect follow up, because again, part of that conversation is, listen, you've posted a range. You and I both know there are a plethora of other benefits that go along with that. And they generally only talk about salary, bonus, PTO, sometimes equity, depending on the size of the company. They won't go into the list of the other things. So you've got to dig, you've got to ask. In fact, this is alarming, but in my career, thousands of people I've made offers to. Not one person has ever asked me about the healthcare benefits, not what's included in the benefits, and not how much they cost. So you could just be getting yourself a salary bump and throwing it all away because you didn't ask those questions. So starting the conversation with a little bit more breadth as opposed to just the
Mhm.
salary. Thank you for bringing that up because that's a much better way for you to start having that conversation. Like, talk to me about the whole package.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm going to say something to be, you have to be sincere and not play games when you say it. You say, look, KL, I'm looking for a place that I want to stay and build a career, and I hope this might be my last job. I would like it to be that. And so I really want to understand everything that I'm signing up for and what I get so I can make an important decision for myself. And it's a nice way of addressing, okay, money's important, but what else? Okay, it's not that important. It's what else can you give me? You know, the thing that drives me crazy, because I don't think most HR people are like you. I think they're just robotic, lower level people. They just screen, throw the book at people, shuffle papers. And I don't mean to insult HR people, but at least some that I know. But I fault the decision makers, right? If you're looking for a key position, doesn't have to be executive position, right? A key position for me, customer service. Okay, there's nothing more important in your company than serving customers. That's my universe. Okay, so if you want to hire a dummy and pay them $10 an hour, okay, so you hired somebody. Guess what? The day you lose a customer, that the lifetime value of that customer to your company might have been $5,000. You just pay $10 to lose 5,000. Can you tell me if that makes any sense to you? So I don't understand from a leadership and management standpoint, why would you lower the bar in terms of a salary range if you're looking for good people? Like you said, be transparent. I know that in the New York market, customer service people, let's say with experience, the range could be, I don't know, 12 to $18 an hour. Okay. When will you get 18? Based on our conversation and you proving that you have some experience and you convince me you can be a change maker in this role. Okay. I'm making stuff up. It's the penny wise dollar foolish approach just for somebody up on a 22nd floor to make their numbers, right? But it's counterproductive. It's just stupid. So I don't use the word expert on anything I do. I leave that for people that don't know anything. They shroud themselves with expert and gurus. But you clearly been on the inside and intimately know the dynamics of what we're talking about. And you had international experience like I have, right? So why is it, and I wrote down, you're serving women and people of color and men who are faced with these issues of having to advocate for themselves and they don't get paid what they deserve. Why is that such a problem in this country? We're supposed to be progressive.
Why is it that people don't
Why is it that women
or they don't have
especially
to?
are facing this inequality?
Why? As a coach, the thing that I have uncovered in almost every single case, it's fear. It's like everything that blocks us in life. It's fear. It's fear of how you might come across. It's a pleaser mentality. It's not knowing. It's what if I piss someone off? It's am I good enough? It's I am a mom and they offer flexibility, so that's enough for me.
Hmm.
Like I don't need both. I just need flexibility. I actually have a woman that I met who was an attorney, and as an attorney, you know the kind of hours that attorneys work. And when she had her children, she worked it out with her firm that she could work a 4-day work week. So she went part time, worked a 4-day work week, but actually worked 5 days, but had the flexibility to be able to work from home or on 1 day a week and then like leave at 4 every day. Like, so she worked out a really great flexible schedule. Her bosses over the years tried to give her more money and she declined because she's like, no, I don't want to give up my flexibility. So it was like this weirdness of it's not an if and, it's an if but. And so she ended up declining raises because she didn't want to give that
Hmm.
up, but they ended up forcing her to take the raise because they were like, you don't have to give that up. So I think there's a lot of just uncertainty. And I think the other thing, when you talk about my experience on the other side, It's actually one of the key things that I'm doing is blowing the doors off of HR so people actually get insights to what the person on the other end is thinking. First of all, they are expecting you to negotiate. So people think I'm going in for this big battle. The reality is they're expecting you to ask. So why not at least ask? The answer might be no. That's the max we can do. The answer might be no on all the other benefits, but by not asking, it's a surprise to them, to be really honest. It's surprising when you don't ask. And if it's a company that doesn't play nice, they might be offering you the lowball offer. I didn't do that as an HR professional. I offered what I thought was appropriate based on the structure that we had created, based on the transparency that we had, based on their years of experience, how they all fit in, and the benchmarking around the rest of the team just to make sure we had proper equity. But there's a lot of companies that I walked into that had no process in place, no equity analysis, and just a free for all. I walked into some of the biggest messes, shocking, and had to fix them. But
And that's probably more common than anybody realizes because people
yes,
are busy and they just don't pay attention to that. But if you stop paying attention to your retention numbers and your turnover in HR, and if you do a 360 reviews where people actually are not afraid to tell you what it's like to work in your company, then you're going to run like hell and get some equity and systems in place. So when you were talking about the attorney that had that 4-day work week deal, it brought something to my mind that was a real problem for us in small business throughout my career, right? So it's 30 years. And that's visibility, right? So people talk to each other and they tell each other how much money they make. So if you have people in the same department, seemingly same experience, and one finds out that the other makes $3 more or more money, that creates a lot of tension and anxiety in the company. But in the case of the attorney, if you were the HR person and I came to you and I said, KL, I have a question. Why is she getting 4 days? I want 4 days. I have a disabled child at home that requires a lot of attention, and both of us work, and it would be nice if I could swap roles with my wife. And why is she getting 4 days?
so ultimately, that comes down again to the leader and to creating great structures where you have flexibility in your structure. And every leader should have conversations with their people. What matters to you? What I care about as a leader is that the work gets done.
Which that
So,
right.
what does that look like for you, Zev? It might look different for Zev, to KL, to someone else. When are you at your peak performance? You know what? I'm a vampire. 11 p.m. to 3 in the morning is when I'm at my peak performance. Well, then let's get you work those hours and come in at 1 o'clock the next day and, or whatever. Like there's this great fear. I grew up in the environment where FaceTime had so much meaning. You were there before your boss, you didn't leave before your boss. And that was so important. And they would judge you based on how long you were in the office.
Yeah.
And most of the time it was nonsense. I had a guy who hated his wife so much, and I knew this because I would stay late and he would tell me stories. And the reason that he stayed late was he'd go out and get McDonald's or Wendy's, come back and sit at his desk and read the newspaper. This was long before the internet. And the reason they did that was because he didn't want to go home.
Mm.
And the next day, the guys were like, "Oh wow, that Dave, man, he is so good. He is such a dedicated employee. He works long hours." And I'm like, BS. No, he's not. He hates his wife. So this FaceTime mentality, and I thought the pandemic was going to serve us better when it came to that, in this greater awareness of what flexibility really looks like and how we can honor the whole person. And sadly, we've gone back to everybody needs to be in office again because of fear. So I think it's just unfortunate. But as a leader, I want to know every one of my people and what makes them tick. And what works for you might not work for someone else. And if a 4-day work week would be helpful for you, then hell yeah. Let's get you working 4 days a week. What days? You tell me, let's make it work. But I have to also be an amazing leader. I have to make sure you have clear expectations. You know where we're going. You know how you fit into the bigger picture. and that I'm empowering you and trusting you to take risks and to do great work
Hmm.
and to fail. And so that's my responsibility as a leader. And you and I better have that agreement, because if you and I don't, and we're not super clear on communicating and how we're going to show up for each other, it will fall apart. If Zev just does whatever he wants and comes and goes as he pleases, it's probably not going to work for me, right? So let's have our agreement. What works? Okay, what's going to work for you? This is what doesn't really work for me. How do we tweak that? Because we got to be on the same page and we have to communicate often. And if you do that, then I don't see why you can't make that work for everyone in your organization.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The COVID thing kind of blew the doors out of this whole, I'm going to call it mistrust of employees, where if I see you in your cubicle and you're there and you pretend to be busy, then everything's great, right? But if all of a sudden you're now in your home and I don't see what you're doing, I don't know you're working. Well, guess what? Other than salespeople that have strict measures, performance measures, which are easy, everyone else in a company should have performance criteria and a way to measure whether they are productive and they're fulfilling their expectations. If you don't have them, shame on you. That's not the employees. So, I mean, I've done remote work for a few companies in my career because I work out of companies in California. I've been the most productive at home because I was so disciplined on not taking a break every 10 minutes and running to the kitchen, another coffee break, and I'm hungry, maybe. No, but most people are not wired like that. You are, I'm sure. Again, it's on the company to set the criteria and the measurement and say, okay, it's not about trusting you. Trust has nothing to do with it. It's about measurement. Okay. You're supposed to do this. We're going to measure performance. And if you do, if you exceed or meet your expectations, wonderful. Right. I mean, if the company is growing and customers are happy, then stop. Right.
Why do we care so much
Yeah.
about why
Yeah.
about seeing them? Yeah. I'm just in such a different place in my life. And of course, in my early days I didn't recognize this, but I am in this energy flow where, like, I know when I'm at my best energy. I know when I am able to be most productive in the day. I know what I need in order to pivot in the day, whether that's 30-minute meditation, whether that's, taking a walk outside and being in nature because I need to refresh. I need to, after 6 hours of working straight in my laptop, I have to take these breaks. Like I'm becoming more and more aware of them and honoring them and then practicing them. But what makes me tick doesn't make you tick and doesn't make someone else. Like, you have to find those and help people find theirs as well, because then you've got a different level of happiness is not the word I'm thinking of, because I think happiness is a choice. But you're coming to work every day with at your highest energy, which is when you then do your best work.
Mm.
And I didn't know these things years ago about myself. I certainly didn't have a leader ever asking me about them.
I was talking to Karen Cooper yesterday, and we were kind of talking about different topics. She addresses mostly her focus is women who had corporate trauma, as she describes it, and we define what trauma is. But it was kind of fascinating discussion about how we wind up in this universe of, and I think from my perspective, I'm a simple guy. I like simplicity. I like to break everything down to simple terms. Life is complicated enough, right? And a lot of times we just overcomplicate stuff. If you just take a deep breath, take a few steps back, and just observe and ask yourself a couple of questions and objectively answer them without being biased because you don't want to go there because of the there piece is going to be uncomfortable for you, then you'll be okay. Again, as you're talking about, this is like I like lots of stories, but years ago when I started with this company, it was a third generation family business. I had to hire a East Coast regional sales guy, and I went up to Providence where our office was and spent the whole day interviewing, and I just couldn't find the right person. To me, I'm very intuitive. It's if I smell it, see it, I'm there. The last guy walks in. His name is Bruce Mullen. He's retired. Walks in, walks through the door, and I swear, KL, he smiled at me. He said, "Hi." I looked at him and I said, "You're hired." And he said, "You're joking, right?" I said, "No. I just interviewed 12 people throughout the day. Not one person had that impact on me." Now, you were in sales. You walked in. There was something about you that had an impact on me. I mean, obviously, I knew from his resume that he had the appropriate background, right? So he was such a great guy that he actually went into his briefcase and he took a checkbook and he said, "How much do I pay you for this?" Right? So Bruce took a territory that was flat and grew it in 3 months, 140%.
Wow.
And one day I'm sitting in my office at 3:30 and the old man, who was the father of the guy, the son, walks in and says, I got to tell you, that guy up there, you did good." I said, "Yeah, Walter, I did. He's great." And he said, "Let me ask you a question. It's 3:30 on Friday. How do you know what he's doing? He's up there." And I said, "Frankly, Walter, I don't give a damn." Right? And he said, "What?" And I said, "I don't care." So what do you mean you don't care? And I said, "He's so productive and he's so good. I hope that he's at the beach right now." And he said, "But it's Friday, 3:30. We still have to work till 5 o'clock." And I said, "See, that's your problem." Okay? Because the guys prior to him that kept quitting had to literally send them a call report after every call they made every single day. Right? And I traveled with the guy before he quit and I watched him and I said, "Dude, you spend more time writing the call report, and then we have to go find a place with a fax machine, than you spent with the customer. That's insane." So my point is to what we said was, yeah, have a measure of performance. And if you have somebody driven, and Bruce, by the way, I knew him. He was at 7 o'clock. He was in the hospital in the basement calling on the buyer at 7 a.m. because he was driven, right? He knew what he was doing. He wasn't afraid to work hard. So Kale, I wanted to tell you something else I wrote. It's a quote just to kind of get you crazed. This is a response after hiring somebody, and it's a true quote, right? Years ago. Somebody who may have been KL and when she was in her 20s, just interviewed, absolutely phenomenal. I said, "That's it, she's in." And I sit down with my boss, and this is what he said. "She's young. Pretty soon she's going to get married and have babies. Let's keep looking." So, because I was close enough to him, I looked at him and I said, "Oh, so you want me to look for a grandma who's collecting Social Security?" And he said, "That's not what I meant." I said, "Listen, if she winds up having babies and she's great, then lucky us, right? Then we should support her. But this is not the norm, right? Just like age discrimination, you're not allowed to, yeah, as soon as you walk out, somebody puts your name into Google, guess what? You find out how old they are. Okay? Wrong approach. Not right. Not fair. So I will end with what I think is at the root of everything we're talking about, which is a quote from my mother who told me that jealousy is the root of all evil in this universe. People are just jealous of each other and they'll go to greater extent to undermine things or to do things on their own that just make no sense. So if everybody who's evaluating employees approach them as human beings who have a life, deserve to grow, deserve to support a family, should come to work every day excited to make, in the word of my mentor Seth Godin, to make work that matters, right? And that's what I used to tell my MBA students because I was coaching them on career choices and everything. I said, "Look, you're gonna like this. Here's an easy exercise for you. You don't have to work too hard to do this. Every day," I said, "I'm assuming you'll brush your teeth, right?" "Yeah." So when you're in a bathroom with your toothbrush and you're brushing your teeth, you're looking at yourself in the mirror. Ask yourself two simple questions. One, have I been productive today? And we defined what productive means, right? I did work that matters, etc. And two, Have I made a difference in someone else's life? Still simple questions. Before you go to bed, brush your teeth. If the answer is yes and yes, smile, happy dreams, repeat tomorrow. If the answer no, I wasn't productive, then ask you what I did today. Well, I slept. Maybe I spent too much time on whatever. I said, commit to improving tomorrow. That's it. The rest is going to fall into place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then those people show up in front of KL and they ask for a raise and they say, I'm happy to give you a raise because we need more people like you in this company. So, last question, KL, because you know things that we don't. If if you ask an HR person who's doing salary negotiations, off the record, what are they telling you to do? They meaning upper management. What would they tell you?
Oh, stick to a budget, unfortunately. Um, it all comes down to the budget in the end. And to your point earlier, the biggest line item on the P&L is headcount budget.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, for non progressive, creative, forward thinking, modern, amazing companies, the first bucket they go to cut is the headcount bucket. And this is why you see such gross negligence, is what I call what's happening in the market right now. And it happens all the time, but it's now a bit more extreme. Instead of looking at our executive salaries, perhaps they need to be readjusted. Instead of looking at waste in the company, instead of looking at our operations. I worked for a company once that wanted to cut the headcount budget. And I said, no, before you touch that bucket, we're going to look at all of the buckets. So give me, please, the
Mm-hmm.
list of where all of our spend is. I want to evaluate it. Took 90 days to send it to me because no one's ever asked for that before. And when I got it, I went through it and I found $24 million worth of waste in 48 hours. So you were going to go and cut the headcount budget without having done this exercise. And I can assure you, Zeb, this is not abnormal. This happens in every single organization. So unless you have someone strong who's pushing back, um, you are succumbing to what the leadership says, which is cut the headcount budget. So unfortunately, there's always a money factor, and there's a budget. So that's on one side. On the other side, they are expecting you to negotiate, and there is a heck of a lot more flexibility beyond the salary bucket. So I'll give you just one last example. I worked with an automotive technician, and he got his master certification. In dealer, the turnover rate is more than 50% for technicians. Very hard to keep, and especially someone with a master cert, which is the highest level you can get. You may get lucky to have one in your store.
Mm-hmm.
Rare. Loved the store he worked at, loved the family, loved the group. They own multiple dealerships. He's like, okay, I got my certification. Now I want to have my financials to go along with it. So we ended up co-creating something so cool. We co-created a bonus program so everything was then him pitching it to his bosses. So we got him a few dollars an hour more, easy. We co-created a bonus program that was based on his performance. And so as he performed higher and higher, the bonus levels went up. Phenomenal. We got him 10 additional PTO days, which as an hourly worker, that is absolutely money in your pocket. We got him a company car, insurance, and gas, which was about $1,700 a month in his pocket after tax, right? So he could get rid of his car payment. He had no more insurance, no more gas. And we got them to cover his wife and his monthly healthcare costs, which was about $750 or $1,000. I can't remember off the top of my head. We got him over 40% more in his package from being creative on these other solutions. Those solutions don't fall under the same P&L bucket.
Mm.
So those actually fall into some of the other buckets. And I'm not saying this to be sneaky, but they're easier for HR to play with, like extra PTO, no brainer, no brainer, no brainer. 5% extra bonus, like I've got a range I can work within, no brainer. Like a lot of it is sign-on bonus is another huge one. So if your
Mm.
salary doesn't quite hit, well, let's see if we can't make that up in a sign-on bonus, or I'm leaving a bonus on the table by leaving my company. Are you open to giving that to me? Otherwise, I can't join for 4 months, or 3 months. So many things to discuss that are beyond that bucket that they have a lot more flexibility on, much more than you realize. And most people don't realize that they even have all these categories. So that would be my little insider secret.
Okay. So I think my message to my listeners, people who are going to watch YouTube, particularly women and maybe minorities and people of color who are affected by this inequality, and there is hope. It's more than hope. There is skill, and the skill is advocate for yourself. But with the caveat, if you're not Keri-Lynne in your approach to your commitment to life and performing, if you just think that because you're a woman or because you're a person of color or minority, you just deserve to get the raise, that's not how life works. You don't deserve anything. You have to own it and you have to fight for it, but you have to prove that you're worth it, right? That master mechanic that got 40% more is bringing value to the company that's probably worth 4 or 5x of what they paid him. So it'd be stupid to let go of a guy like that because you can't find masters too often, right? It's really not complicated, right? Just remove the emotions out of it and just look at the plus and look at the minus. And if there's more on the plus, then you go for it, right? So I had more questions for you, but we're at an hour and 12 minutes. I could probably do this for another hour. Thank you so much for doing this. And I've know that people that are going to take the hour, and I always tell everyone, don't get scared about the hour. Go to settings and put the speed to 1.25, and it works much faster, and you don't want to think. I hope people walk away with it, not just women, but anybody who feels compromised, leaving money on the table, afraid to ask. Yeah, if you're a good employee and you're providing value and people know you in the company, then ask for what you deserve. And by the way, if the answer is no, 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 you know what to do.
I'm
You know what to do. Yeah, don't quit your
Yeah.
job.
And by the way, Zeb, job jumpers make 55% more than those that stay loyal. So there is a great opportunity for you to earn more
Yeah.
as you
And by the way,
move to.
as an immigrant who came here with 6 months old babies and a baby and started at 19 and making 21 was a dream, and then 30 and then 50, I have in my career multiple times of taking a step back over $10,000 salary, which is painful because the upside potential was way higher than being in that position that paid X, and it worked. It worked. I wasn't a jumper, whatever. But I made those strategic decisions for myself based on the potential and what I thought I could do. So it's okay. Sometimes you take a step back to move 3 steps forward.
But that meant you were someone who was in the driver's seat,
Yeah, I
right?
had up.
You were driving it. You were thinking a few steps ahead. You were playing chess. You were betting on yourself. You were betting on that potential. So I think it's really just sitting down and thinking about what drives you, what gets you excited, and where you want to spend your energy. And you did that. And
Yeah,
I did that.
yeah,
And there's a lot of listeners out there that can do that as well.
yeah. We're not entitled to anything. We have to work for what we ask for and go actually above and beyond, and then life is good. Gary, I'm so glad Ashley introduced you to me. It was awesome.
Thank you.
I will include in the show notes how to find you, and this is the start of a beautiful friendship. And I don't go to Jersey too often, but we'll meet somewhere.
I come into the city fairly often. This was beyond a pleasure, such a beautiful surprise. I had no idea what to expect. And this has been, I've done 35 podcasts, absolute favorite podcast I've done. So thank you,
Thank you.
really.
Thank you. I try. All right. Thanks a lot.